Hello everyone, my name is Garvin and I watch things and rattle on about them on the internet for your entertainment. Today, as chosen by my ever-wise patrons, whose ranks you can join for as little as $1 a month by clicking on the link in the description, we're going to dive deeper into our look at mermaids in popular culture by turning to the critically acclaimed animated hit Ponyo. Written and directed by the legendary Miyazaki, whose list of known works is probably longer than my arm at this point, but he has been working since the 1960s, so maybe that's to be expected. That said, to give you some of the more well-known examples, there's Kiki's Delivery Service, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, Howl's Moving Castle, and of course, the big one, Princess Mononoke. There are entire videos and entire YouTube channels devoted to this man's work, so I'm just going to focus on Ponyo here. We're not going to get too into the weeds. So let's get to the bottom of this, shall we? The film opens at the bottom of the ocean, where the once human wizard Fujimoto is carefully dribbling out a magical fluid into the sea that appears to be revitalizing the sea life. Now, the magic in this movie is evocative but vague and never really explained. But given that this is supposed to be a fairy tale type story, I don't really see that as a problem. Anywho, while our wizard is distracted, his eldest daughter, eldest out of many, too many to count honestly, decides to sneak off, take a joyride on a jellyfish, and go check out the surface. And I do want to note here that the animated montage of her jellyfish joyride is pure Studio Ghibli. If you like Studio Ghibli montages, you'll love this. This young lady is our title character, and she is a mermaid, specifically a ningyo, a type of Japanese mermaid that is usually depicted as having a human head and a face, but being a fish basically from the neck down. And as we can see, the lady here starts off no different. The fantastic Studio Ghibli montage continues, showing us the surface of the sea and the ships cruising upon it, and ends up giving us a very nice view of a lovely seaside port town. Fun fact, this picturesque town that our human characters live in is based on the real Tomo no Moreira town in Japan. Things get a little rougher for her though as we get close to land, and Ponyo finds out that while the surface of the sea looks beautiful and sparkly, underneath there's a lot of trash that's been kind of just thrown into the sea and drifted to the sea floor. And this is an issue because she runs into a ship dragging a large net that drags up all this trash. In escaping, she gets trapped in a large glass jar. But good news, she's found by our other main character, a 5-year-old boy named Sasuke, who rescues her by breaking open the jar and getting her into a bucket of clean water where she can hang out in and generally be safe. He does cut himself doing so, but Ponyo licks the cut, healing it, showing that she has magic powers, and this is the inciting incident that starts our plot. You see, by tasting human blood and eating human food, in this case a piece of ham from Sasuke's sandwich, she is now able to change herself into a human, but in doing so, throws out the balance of the universe. And this is gonna have some consequences. Meanwhile, Ponyo's father has tracked her down, and when a confrontation between him and Sasuke's mother Lisa doesn't work out the way he wants it to, he resorts to basically using water elementals that he calls wave spirits to drag her scaly butt home. By the way, Fujimoto here is voiced by Liam Neeson in the English dub. So here's another movie where he has to leave home, head into places he hates because his daughter won't listen to him. Someone needs to do a cut of him doing the phone call with from Taken, but doing it with Sasuke, the 5-year-old boy, instead, because that would be hilarious. I'm just throwing that out there. If someone's already done that, please drop a link in the comments. Getting back to the movie, though, our water wizard gets his fishy kid home, but he finds out he's a bit late, and she is screaming that she wants to spend her life on land with Sasuke eating ham. Sasuke is not even 6 years old, and he's got that kind of game already. This kid is dangerous. Fujimoto locks Ponyo in her mermaid form, telling her, hey, you can't be magical and a human at the same time. Which is unfortunate because, well, who doesn't want magic powers? He's undermined by the fact that the rest of his daughters come together to free Ponyo and get her back to the surface, changing her into a human girl in the process. During this, a massive storm kicks off, and everyone is battening down the hatches. Meanwhile, Ponyo is literally running on the top of storm waves to find Sosuke, and Lisa, Sosuke's mother, who, by the way, is voiced by Tina Fey, is driving him home through the storm. And I just want to note for the record, this woman drives like a bloody maniac. She is utterly incapable of any chill behind the wheel, deciding to race the waves of a possible tsunami up a mountain with her 5-year-old son in the car. I don't have kids, so I try not to judge parents because it's a difficult job. But that's lunacy, lady. What the hell? Lisa also seems rather blasé about a random 5-year-old girl showing up in front of her house during the storm of the century and being told, oh yeah, this girl is that fish I had this morning and I lost. But given everything going on, maybe she just doesn't have enough time or energy to really process this, and she's decided to just put this on a shelf for later. So she focuses on important things, like making sure her house is secure and has power, and that the kids she has with her are warm and fed and safe, which are good priorities. However, I do have to dock points from her for her next set of decisions. You see, Lisa decides that having fed Sasuke and Ponyo and made sure that they're warm and safe, she's going to pack up a giant care package, get back into her car, drive through the tsunami to the senior center she works at when the power goes out in town because she's worried about the old folks. Which, it's fair for her to be worried about the old folks here. But she leaves 2 small children alone. And they don't have any neighbors. This house is on the top of the mountain by itself. And I know Japan puts greater value on their elders than we do. I get that, but these seniors are in the middle of a town with a bunch of nurses and caretakers. They have help. Meanwhile, those 2 kids only have her. So I can't find this as anything but wildly irresponsible. They're like 5. And she leaves them alone overnight and goes driving off into a storm after having to race a wave to the top of this mountain only a couple hours earlier. As you can figure out, I'm a little flabbergasted by this. I'm kind of like, what is going through your head right now? What is wrong with you? But let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. The kids fall asleep, and when they wake up, their mountaintop home is now beachfront property. They now live on an island, that's right. Through the use of Ponyo's magic, they turn a toy boat into a full-size boat and sail over to town, which, while flooded, isn't entirely underwater, and they start looking for Lisa. It's there that they run into Fujimoto, Ponyo's dad. Because while this has been going on, he ran off and he called up Ponyo's mother, who is an actual goddess, who, in a strange coincidence, had just rescued Sasuke's father, who is a ship captain, because a bunch of ships had gotten trapped out in sea. And, oh, yes, the moon is slowly heading towards the Earth, and the satellites are falling out of the sky because the universe is out of balance. And things are bad. And her solution? Why don't we just let Ponyo live as a human? It'll make her happy, it'll be fun, let's just let her be human. There is a catch. Sasuke has to promise to love and protect her. We're gonna hang the fate of the world on a 5-year-old boy's ability to keep his promises. Well, if he can't do it, the moon is gonna smash into the earth, so we won't live long to regret it, so there's that. There is a night-long conversation between Lisa and Ponyo's mother that we don't see or hear anything about, so I found that interesting, but that's not part of Sasuke or Ponyo's experience, so I can understand why it's not covered in the movie. And the ending is kind of anticlimactic. Ponyo's father brings them both to their mothers. Ponyo's mother, the goddess, sits down with Ponyo and Sasuke, explains everything, and just turns to Ponyo and goes, "So, you'll lose all your magic, and you can never come back, but do you still want to be a human?" And Ponyo, of course, says yes. And then she turns to Sasuke and be like, "So, it's going to be your responsibility to protect and love her, whether she's a fish or a human. Can you do that?" And he's a 5-year-old boy, so he is nothing if not confident. And he just goes, yeah, no problem. And that fixes everything. The universe returns to its balanced state. The moon goes back to its orbit. I don't know what happens with the satellites, but, I mean, worst case scenario, we build new satellites and launch them. But, man, I wish I could fix the problems in my life that easily, right? Well, the movie ends with everyone returning to the surface, and with a kiss, Ponyo becomes a little girl again, and the screen fades to black. So, while I've been a little cynical maybe, this is very much a fairy tale. Strange and bizarre things happen, and most people are shockingly accepting of this, along with making rather questionable decisions. And I mean you, Lisa. However, if you accept the premise and the somewhat sideways logic of the tale, it does all make a certain kind of sense. In fact, even as notable folks as Professor Tolkien wrote about this, the separation of fairy and humanity and how both sides run on completely different thought processes and logic. In this case, we enter the fairy tale when Ponyo leaves her father's side, and we don't exit it until Ponyo becomes human for the last time. So this entire episode is running on a different logic than everyday mortal existence, and Miyazaki is just insanely good at placing us in that fairy tale and staying in that space until the story is over. That said, if you're not going to be able to accept the fairy tale logic, and you can see in this review I do push back against it a little bit, then you're going to find this story a little hard to follow maybe. But this is just something you have to do if you're going to watch or read a fairy tale, is just accept the difference in logic. So, if you're familiar with Studio Ghibli, you're not surprised that we do end up looking at some environmental themes in this movie, like how easy it is for the balance of nature to be upended, and how there are always dire consequences for that. And we also find ourselves looking at a very innocent version of mermaid romance here, as Ponyo is willing to abandon her old life entirely to live on land, and Sasuke is very prepared to let her into his life. We do see elements of mermaid myth here, crossing over from the water to the land, the magic powers, the transformation, the whole romance, I guess you could call it, element of it. And we also see this sort of idea of environmental guardianship coming to the fore as well. And it's interesting that that's getting stressed more and more for mermaids. However, I think this is a good place to stop for the week, and I hope you found this video informative, or at least entertaining. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, or even subscribe, as all of these help me in my eternal struggle against the dread Lord algorithm. Terror be on his name. I'd like to give a special thanks to Big Steve, my biggest supporter. I hope you enjoyed this, big guy. So, next week, before we tackle the big one, The Little Mermaid, we're going to look at another written work. We're going to look at Oscar Wilde's The Fisherman's Soul. I hope you'll join me, but until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, keep reading.